What's up, everybody? It's your main man Bennett back here and again, and welcome back to the Get off me. Nacho Mama's Fantasy Football League Volume 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to try and get through these power rankings week 14. Week 14? Let's just get into it, huh? Sasai.
Sasai.
Okay, so we're back at it again. 12th place to first place. I want to get through the rankings quickly because I have a couple playoff scenario breakdowns. I didn't go through all the different iterations, but there are numerous of them. So without further ado, 12th place is kicking it with Younghoe. I did want to take a moment just to pretend these are my notes. I'm not pretending these are my notes. These are my notes, but we're going to play pretend, okay? Okay. Man, oh man, I can't believe Carson Wentz is going to win MVP this season. Geez, just crazy stats all year long. Pure domination. We all knew Najee Harris was going to be a top 3 back, but who would have guessed that James Conner was going to finish number 1? I mean, those Cardinals. Who would have thought, huh? Best in the West. It goes, there's more, but I'm going to stop there. So we'll move on to the 11th place team. 11th place team in these year rankings is the Ideal Fantasy Team. That's right. 4-10. Defeated Limp Biscuits, I think. So, Tanner, blessings upon your house. What was I going to say about Tanner's team? Just go watch a sad movie, like a Schindler's List, and it's about the same. We're going to move on to 10th place team. 10th place team in these year rankings is Master Cook. So, Master Cook, 10th place. Had he played Chuba Hubbard instead of Jeff Wilson Jr., he would have scored 109 points and won. But that would not make, much of a difference. But, say la vie, crest visa, as we talked about last week. Love Allen's team. Don't love that they lost. What are you going to do? We're going to move on. 9th place team. 9th place team in these year rankings is the Chateau St. Bargles Winery. That's right. It's my team. 6-8, went to the Fancy Lads, lost by 2. If I had streamed any defense that was available on the waiver, or if I had played Marquise Hollywood Brown instead of Travis Etienne, I would have won by like 0.1. So that is the story of my life. We're going to move on to the 8th place team in these here rankings, and it is Ghost of Bongtown. Andrew won, mainly because Evan looks like made a little bit of a boo-boo, an uncharacteristic boo-boo, as it were. I think my notes say that he left Aaron Rodgers and Alvin Kamara in his lineup. As a result, he lost. Had he played Trevor Lawrence on his bench, and let's just say he played Evan Ingram he would have scored like 144 points. We're saying Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram combined for like 73 points. How often does that happen? Anyway, goes to Bongtown, 7-7, feeling great. Although not playoff relevant, we'll have to look to next year for the grand prizes. But he does play a role in this final week of games. There's a couple teams like Master Cook, goes to Bongtown, that are in the mix to shake things up potentially, for other teams involved in the playoffs. We'll get to that later. Move on to the 7th place team. 7th place team in these year rankings is Team Diaper Funds. That's right, it's Corey's team. Corey lost to Darren's team, and I think that kind of sealed his fate. And by kind of, I mean it did. His fate is sealed. Like some sort of sealed fate. Who do we blame? You know, who can we blame, Corey? Joe Mixon? Do we blame Dalvin Cook? You know, can we really blame Josh Allen? I mean, Josh Allen was the main guy that kind of got you where you got. So, how about the Vikings defense giving you -2? That could be it. Or Juju Smith-Schuster, if you had played him instead of Ramondre Stevenson, I think you actually would have won. So, better luck next year, buddy. Good to see you. What can I say? Moving on to the 6th place team. 6th place team, and this is where the teams become very relevant. Very relevant, indeed. 6th place team, although they just lost, it's Team Rob's. So even as I say that, I feel like I got to check my work. Because, man, how can that be? You know? How can it be that a guy that just left in, but he lost, you know? What can we say? Evan is 8-6, picking up sticks, and he has some very real potential to make the fantasy playoffs, but requires some very interesting things to have happen. We'll get into that. We're going to move on to the 5th place team. The 5th place team in these here rankings, and I think you can smell it. I think you can hear it, and it's because we are here at the end of the year. And lo and behold, O-side way to go. Darren's team, man, got the victory. And as luck would have it, although Kyler Murray has done very little over the course of this season to assist Darren in this effort, he is 8-6. And he has a shot. He has a real shot. I don't know how well Marcus Mariota or someone from the waiver wire is going to help him moving forward, but he's got a real shot. Playoffs start now for Evan. They start now for Darren. And they also start now for the 4th place team. 4th place team in these year rankings currently is Betta with Chedda. Now, as I'm saying that, my research dictated that Betta with Chedda actually should be ahead of the 3rd place team. And the ESPN app may, in fact, look at it as such. But hey, you know, he's going to be rolling with Brock Purdy. So that's why I put him at 4th. You know, I just don't know about Brock Purdy. He's been, he only scored like 87 points this past week. That's not a lot. He's averaging 110. Talking about Ben's team here. Only averaging about 110. It's one of the lower point averages, I think. He's facing Master Cook in his last game of the regular season, and it's a must-win for Ben's team. Although, I'll tell you, I went through, 11, 12? I went through about 13 different combinations of scenarios that are going to take place this last weekend. I think there's only about 16 variations, and I went through about 13. I should have done the other ones, but I didn't. I don't care. We're going to move on. 3rd place team. 3rd place team in these here rankings is, it's Grand Salami time. I added the whip at the end. Katie got the victory. Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs combined for 81. You want to go against that in the fantasy playoffs? I don't think anybody do. Katie's got a real shot to sustain her place, but there's also several scenarios in which she can lose her place. So again, this last week of the regular season, really the playoffs have begun for, if you're not in the top two, then the playoffs have most certainly begun. We're going to go to the second place team. Second place team is here. Rankings is, I feel like I'm Conan O'Brien right now with this. Huh? Second place is Limp Biscuit. Put Michael at 2 because he lost 2 games in a row. What an interesting time to start losing. What a weird thing. What happened? He's got a top 10 quarterback, top 2 tight end, a top 5 scoring defense in the Bills, top 10 receiver in Waddle. Garrett Wilson and Amari Cooper are very good. He's got 2 of the top 6 fantasy running backs. But in my humble estimation, there is one team, and it's also the app would agree with me. There's one team that is superior to Limp Biscuits. And it is the fancy frickin' lads. Can't believe it. Well, I can believe that Whitney beat the Winery because that happens. I have a losing record, I think. So, most people that went up against me got the victory. Justin Jefferson, Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of like that's enough. Those 2 guys basically negate all of the positive things I just said about Limp Bizkit's team. I would say Justin Jefferson, Patrick Mahomes are worth equal to, if not, equal to or more than the Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts. I would argue that. Michael's going to be rolling in with like a Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Mark Andrews. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson average 50 points. Those 2 together average 50 points. Now, the running backs Whitney has leave a lot to be desired. Devin Singletary, Kenneth Walker, but A.J. Brown is legit. So they're we're not talking like big disparities here. It's 1A and 1B, and any given week, I'd even argue at this point that Katie's team got unlucky a couple times. Those top 3 are very close together. So that's the list of the rankings, 12 through 1, about 12 minutes in. Now I'm going to try and spend as little amount of time as possible just going over some of these scenarios. There's several scenarios. I made a little math grid that, this team loses, this team wins. This team wins, this team loses. And by my estimation, and granted, haven't done this kind of math in a while, not the best math guy out there, I think that there's approximately 16 scenarios. There's 4 games that are of very much consequence. Team Robs against the Fancy Lads is a notable one. O-Side Vedigo versus Grand Salami Time. Very important game. Betta with Chedda against Master Cook. Important. And Limp Biscuits taking on the Ghost of Bongtown now. The simple, real easy to understand scenarios, basically, the first and second place belong to the Fancy Lads and Limp Biscuit. That's it. Those 2 have aligned themselves in such a way that they are in the fantasy playoffs, win or lose. So congratulations to Michael. Congratulations to Whitney. Whitney, man, what a climb from being in the basement in years past to playoffs, baby. I love it. I'm so excited for both of you guys to really have a chance to make it to monies. Of the 13 scenarios that I broke down, the Limp Bizkit and Fancy Lads are in the top 4 regardless. Sometimes Limp Bizkits are ahead. Let's say they win and Whitney loses. That's how Limp Bizkits would be 1 and Fancy Lads would be 2, and vice versa. If they both win, they have the same record. Fancy Lads owns the tiebreaker. Fancy Lads would be number 1. So those 2 teams are in like Flint. But let's talk about the 3rd and 4th place real quick. We are looking at a combination of teams. Could it be Team Robs? Could it be O-Side Vedigo, Grand Salami Time, Betta, with Chedda. There are 4 teams. There are only 2 slots. What does that mean? Well, let's say Katie wins and Ben loses. Okay, let's just do that one. Well, Katie's going to be in, but Ben's going to be in. Okay, that also means Evan loses. But no matter what, Ben's team owns a tiebreaker against everybody that he could be competing with. So when I go through my 13 scenarios, I see Ben is in basically Betta with Chedda. Is it just dawning on me just now? Ben's in. Ben's in. I'm just saying that. My data supports it. Ben's in. So congratulations to reigning defending champion Ben with Betta with Chedda. He is, that name, Betta with Chedda, is either in the 3rd or the 4th slot in 13 of my 16 scenarios. Granted, there's 3 scenarios I didn't look at because I was tired. You know, what are you going to do? But yeah, Betta with Chedda. He owns the tiebreaker against Katie, against Evan, and against Darren. So no matter what, if they have a tied record with him, Ben gets the nod. If Ben has a worse record than somebody, which is possible, he could finish the year, say, 9-6. Grand Salami Time could finish 10-5. Well, all that does is put him in the 4th spot. So that's his worst case scenario, is losing. So Ben's in. The work that he did earlier in the year, making it happen now. Because if he loses, he is in. My research could be wrong. I'm not infallible. I am not an emissary of the cosmos. But I believe that Betta with Chedda is in the fantasy playoffs. So, hey, we'll give a little delayed while I'm working this out. So, really, we're looking at the 4th spot. We're looking at the 4th spot, and it's a 3-way race then. I thought it was a 4-way race for the 2, but it's a 3-way race for the 1. Huh. Okay, so we got Darren's team, we got Evan's team, and we have Katie's team. Well, they can't all win. If Darren wins and Evan loses, Darren's in. That's how that works. Evan loses, Darren wins, Darren is in, because Darren and Katie would have the same record, and Darren owns the tiebreaker over Katie. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is that, say, Evan loses, Darren loses, Betta with Chedda loses, Limp Biscuit loses. Well, that's where Grand Salami Time gets that 3rd slot. They'd have the same record as Limp Biscuits, but they lost to Limp Biscuits in week 2. Doesn't really matter in this case. And so you have Grand Salami Time would have that other slot. There is a scenario in which case I believe that Evan would occupy the 4th slot. What would have to happen? Well, Evan's got to win. He's got to defeat the Fancy Lads. There you go. So then those slots are Limp Bizkit, Fancy Lads, Betta with Chedda, and the 4th slot, it'd be a tied record with Darren, Katie, and Evan, and Betta with Chedda. They would all finish the year with a 9-6 record. Well, we know that Betta with Chedda has a tiebreaker against all of them. So they would get the 3rd slot. But then how do you decide who gets the 4th slot? Well, you have Evan, Darren, Katie. They're tied. Same record. Well, you go to tiebreaker, right? Well, Katie beat, Katie beat Darren. Wait, no. I don't know. It starts to get a little convoluted. My notes are, I'm like reading it, and I don't even know what I'm reading here. Essentially, Evan beat Darren twice. Darren beat Katie twice. And Katie beat Evan once. Those are the tiebreakers of the 3 teams, right? So I say that then you have a tiebreaker record with teams of your same record. And it'd be, in the case of Evan, 2-1. In the case of Darren, 2-1. And in the case of Katie, 1-2. Darren has 2 tiebreakers against Katie. Evan has 2 tiebreakers against Darren. Katie has 1 tiebreaker against Evan. I see then number of tiebreakers. Katie's got less, so now Katie's out the picture. In this very limited scenario here. Katie's out the picture, and you're left with Evan and Darren. Evan's got the tiebreaker over Darren. So I would put Team Robs in those scenarios. That scenario is then where Evan wins and Darren wins. Evan's in. There you go. How right am I? I don't know. We'll find out. How educational was this? Not very. If you're still with me, my name's Bennett. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I've been doing it the whole damn year, haven't I? So, why would I stop now? Best of luck to everybody. Best of luck to the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday Night Football against the 49ers and Brock Very Purdy. What can we say? You know? What can we say that hasn't already been said? Good job.